IVM.
Technology is creating disruptive changes in almost all industries. From the rise of banking as a service in fintech to the inventions of robots in retail, technology is all around us. Hello, I'm Shiladitya, and in today's episode of Capgemini's Techipedia Series, we'll be talking to Ananth Chandramouli, the Managing Director of the India Business Unit at Capgemini, and Deepak Solanki, the CIO and Director for APAC and Software Engineering Center at CNH Industrial. We'll be discussing technological changes that are positively impacting the agriculture sector and are paving the way for creating a more sustainable and inclusive world. Let's go into a quick break and join Ananth and Deepak on the other side.
We face 100 dilemmas every day while raising our children and nurturing our families. Why not let science help us make informed decisions to solve our dilemmas? Hi, I'm Devi Shobha.
And I'm Meghna. We host Big Talk About Tiny Humans, where we will help you unpack challenges around parenting and your child's development.
And more importantly, we will equip you with research-backed strategies that you can readily act on.
Tune in to our podcast every Wednesday on the IBM Podcasts app, website, or your favorite podcast platforms.
Hi, Ananth. Hello, Deepak. Welcome to the show. Thank you so much for being here. How are you doing today, Ananth? How are you?
Awesome, Shiladitya. Thank you for having me here. It's a great pleasure to be with you as well as Deepak.
Thank you. And of course, this is our ongoing series with Capgemini. So thank you so much for, sharing your, insights with us today. I really look forward to the conversation. And Deepak, thank you so much for being our guest today. You are, of course, from CNHI. If you could give us a little brief about the company itself and, the domain that you're in before, let's say, we get into the conversation.
Yeah, sure. It's a pleasure to be in this conversation. Briefly, CNH is a global agricultural and construction equipment player. We are a $19.5 billion company. We are second largest agricultural equipment manufacturer. Presence in many locations, about 160 countries around the world, and about 37,000 employees. I'm focused on the precision technology area in CNH as well as managing the IT.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you for that background. It really helps set the context, of course, of the discussion that we're going to have. And, as part of the series that we're doing, which is the Capgemini Techipedia, we always look at technologies and conversations which are a little bit of I would say, look into the future. And of course, it's enabled by technology companies like Capgemini and yourself. So I'm looking forward to learning more. Before we get into that, of course, Ananth, if I could direct the first question to you. We talk about a lot of these things when it comes to, Agritech and, agriculture technology in general. India as such is, of course, a very large agricultural sector nation. But there's this one concept which is, I think, particularly interesting, which I think everyone would have heard about by now, which is what we call the farm to fork sort of model. Right. So maybe if you could, introduce us to exactly what that means and maybe also some of the challenges being faced by trying to deliver that farm to fork model here.
Sure, Shiladitya. First of all, it's again a very great pleasure to be here along with Deepak and on a topic that is very, very close to our hearts. Okay, so let us look at the big picture first. Number one, I think world population will grow close to 10 billion in another 3 decades from now. So approximately 2 more billion mouths to be fed. Second is only 1/3 of the entire agricultural land in the world is cropland, and the rest are pastures and meadows. The cropland per capita has actually indeed halved in the last half a century, and that trend continues. Third point is, 20 to 40% of the global crop yields are lost to pests and diseases. And then another 10 to 25% are lost in terms of post-harvest losses. Okay, so with this kind of a context and the geopolitical factors that are surrounding us, food security is taking more and more precedence in the world economy. And just today we saw this news: India has banned wheat exports, and due to the Ukraine war, we are talking about the edible oil supply being constrained, etc. So with this larger context, if you look at the farm to fork model, it's just a kind of a naming for the entire supply chain that covers the journey of the food from planting and harvesting of various things like fruits, vegetables, grains, and processed foods and whatnot till its arrival on your plate. Okay, so this chain consists of course, the suppliers to farmers, companies like your seed companies, fertilizer companies, agri equipment manufacturers like CNH, and so on and so forth, to the farmers themselves, and to the food processors, retailers, traders, and finally to the consumers. Okay, so this is the broad concept of the farm to fork, as we call. In terms of challenges, I see three broad challenges in the supply chain today. The first and foremost, the risk is very concentrated towards one player, and that player is farmer. Okay, the farmer is the biggest risk taker. From pre-sowing factors like the vagaries of weather to the soil quality erosion over a period of time, to the selection of the right profitable product. By the time you harvest, the market vagaries actually kind of brings the price down. Whole lot of things, right? Crop insurance. So all these challenges actually kind of create tremendous amount of risk for the farmers. So I think we all need to figure out how to create more value in the ecosystem, but also provide the equitable distribution of that value to the farmers. So that's the first challenge. The second big problem I see is a fundamental lack of trust in this farm to fork supply chain. Right? If you look at it, I think more and more, over a period of time, a very small number of players are making most of the decisions in terms of our food, how the food is produced, to the way it's processed, transported, packaged, and sold. Okay. For example, in the Netherlands, from the 1980s, there were a few thousands of tomato producers. It is reduced to 5 now. Okay. And of course, the production has gone up tremendously and the productivity has gone up. It's all there, but it's all concentrated towards a set of very few players. And this creates lack of trust in the value chain. The third and last problem I see is, while digital technology is all pervasive and it really enables the entire farm to fork value chain across, it's not only precision farming, but also in the logistics, and a lot of biotech, opportunities are kind of shaping up. The large players, the commercial industrial producers who have deeper pockets to drive technology implementation, that is on the one end of the spectrum, whereas the marginal and subsistence farmers do not have the ability to embrace technology. So there is a clear digital divide. Okay. So in summary, while we look at the overall farm to fork value chain and how to leverage technology to solve broader challenges, we also need to be ensuring that these solutions are very contextualized to a wide spectrum of problems across geographies and markets. That's the sum and substance in my view, Shiladitya.
Thank you, Ananth. And in fact, one of those terms which you used, obviously we'll get into a lot more detail of, which is precision agriculture. And to that point, Deepak, since you are in the business of providing services and products around precision farming, do you want to add to what Ananth just said in terms of what's causing farm to fork not being as disruptive as maybe it could have been in India so far?
Yeah, so I think there are two things in terms of what is the role that precision farming plays in this entire journey, and also why is it not successful in India? I think there are two questions here. So look, I think this obviously it represents the entire supply chain, but I think to an extent today consumers are also driving this. Okay, today I think consumers are a lot more conscious of what is being put on the plate. They also think they need to actively manage because, of course, farming has a huge impact on several things on our environment, on definitely use of water and this thing. So, look, precision farming obviously is about ensuring that we are able to carry out applications in the farm in a precise manner. Whether it is application of fertilizers, whether it is application of pesticides, whether it is water, can we actually apply each of this precisely in the field? And of course, that has an impact on everything, on environment, on sustainability. Right. Now, This is, of course, today in India, it is really, it is being heavily, today, at least outside India, it's heavily adopted. In India, there is challenges, obviously, because the mechanization, first of all, is not very high. A lot of the precision farming technology, which is developed and is in use today, relies on the equipment to carry out the precise application. So unless the mechanization is at a certain level, the current set of technologies are a bit challenging to adopt in India.
Understood. Taking again segue from that answer, Ananth, back to you. Mechanization was a point which Deepak mentioned, and you spoke about the supply chain having low trust. Is there anything larger overall in the agricultural sector? If I were to zoom out and say, what are the predominant problems being faced by the overall sector? How do you rank each of these things that you mentioned earlier, and any other points? How would you describe what's going wrong here in the sector today?
Sure. So again, let us look at the set of players in the value chain. I would probably put the farmers and the consumers at the center. Finally, Those are the human beings that create or generate food for us and we consume. So consumers first. Today, as Deepak mentioned, consumers are becoming more and more conscious and discerning in terms of what is on their plate. I'm more kind of worried about whether it is organic and used less pesticides or maybe no pesticides. Is it a non-GMO produce? Is it actually produced in a sustainable manner? And how can I kind of trace it? Finally, the trust part. If somebody is saying some vegetable is organic and I buy it from my nearby shop, whether it is truly organic or not. Okay, how can I trust that certification, so to speak? So that is one part. Second, I think as an urban consumer, I would also want to see how the entire distribution can be kind of made decentralized. Okay, how much of it can I probably grow in my apartment, right? So urban farming techniques are kind of coming up. Things like hydroponics, aeroponics, which requires less soil and more of adding nutrients to the water. This is my way of living, right? I want to be more sustainable to Mother Earth. So these kind of choices are really kind of driving a whole lot of things in the consumer side of things. Farmers, of course, there are two absolutely ends of the spectrum, so to speak. One is very, very highly industrialized, large commercial producers. Their problem statement is very different. A lot of technologies, drones, AI, computer imaging, and harvesting as a service. Equipments put in harvesters. There are a whole lot of point solutions available. Their problem statement is, how do I get one single integrated solution for me to achieve the business outcomes? That is the problem for the large industrial farmers. If you come to the smallhold subsistence farmers, they are happy to kind of adopt any point solution. But today they cannot really afford the kind of capex that one would expect from them. So this is a challenge from a farmer standpoint. If you go to the supplier ecosystem, be it a fertilizer company or an agri equipment manufacturer like CNH, they are trying to figure out, hey, I want to help my customer, which is the farmer ultimately, but how do I create an ecosystem and provide them a holistic solution? And thereby, you are not selling your product or service, but you are selling a solution to the farmer, right? That is the problem that is grappling the suppliers to the farmers. When finally coming to the buyers, the traders and retailers and e-commerce companies, okay, one of the examples is recently the ABCD of traders. ADM, you have Bunge, you have Cargill and Dreyfus. These four join hands together to create a blockchain-based logistics supply chain to ensure traceability, right? Their problem is all about traceability. Am I sourcing the product from the right farmer? And of course, the quality of that product, no 2 bushels of wheat are same, right? The quality actually varies from one geography to another. So they want to ensure that there is a traceability mechanism to kind of put the pieces of the puzzle together. So these are the predominant problems, cutting across the value chain. Ultimately, that one thing that ties together, across the value chain is the sustainability. Does each part of the supply chains, really generating food or creating food in a very sustainable fashion, okay, including packaging, for example, right? Those are the days where we used to go to a nearby grocery store and we used to get all your grains in a piece of newspaper packaged. Today, the amount of packaging that an e-commerce company has to do to deliver it to your doorstep is phenomenal. So I think these are the larger problems in the entire value chain, I would reckon, Shiladitya.
Deepak, would you want to add to that from your experience as well?
Yeah, look, for me, I think the biggest challenge is on the business model side itself, especially in India. I think the fact is that we have small, fragmented farms, small farmers. One aspect is how do you get them to trust, whatever, let's say, a solution provider has to offer. How do you get this farming community to actually start trusting that, given that they are more used to trusting, their local expert, local, people. Second is who do you get to pay for that technology? Now the small farmer obviously is not somebody who's going to say, okay, I'm going to start paying for something today, even though it is going to benefit him. But then there are several other players in the supply chain who benefit. So how do we actually build a business model whereby the player who has capacity, whether it is a corporation in the middle, whether it is the government, player who has a capacity to pay for it, can pay for adoption of these better farming techniques, and essentially the farmer can then adopt. I think these are the two, to me, key challenges.
Let's go into a quick break and join Ananth and Deepak on the other side.
Hey, it's been another great week on the IVM Podcasts Network. On the Filter Coffee podcast, Karthik talks to Svetlana Nodial, Programming Director Asia Movie, about how movie curates access to world cinema. Introducing our new show, Capgemini's Techipedia Series with Shiladitya M. In the first episode, we meet Nishit Srivastav, Chief Technology and Innovation Officer at Capgemini India. He tells us all about the metaverse's impact on different domains. On Paisa Vaisa, Anupam explores stock market trends with Prabhakar Tiwari, Chief Growth Officer at Angel One. On All Things Policy, the Takshashila folk discuss how the latest events in Sri Lanka impact India. On The Habit Coach, Ashton shares 3 steps to shake off a slump. And on Say No to Drama, Chetna explains how we can protect ourselves from energy suckers. We've got some exciting news for you. IVM Podcasts has just launched its merch, and our first line is out now. Head to the IVM Podcasts website and click on the Shop tab to check out our first collection of t-shirts. Do follow us on social media via IVM Podcasts on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. And remember, if you're enjoying this show or any of our other shows for that matter, please do tell a friend. Don't forget to rate us on any platforms you're listening on. You can also check us out on YouTube. We are also doing a small listener survey to better understand how you respond to our shows and advertising on the network. We would really appreciate if you could spare a few minutes to fill it. It helps us build better shows for you. And finally, we would like to thank our sponsors this week, SBI Life Insurance and Jupiter, a digital banking app.
Continue on that itself, if you could help elaborate. Like you mentioned, in better farming techniques, digital farming, precision farming. Could you elaborate on exactly what that is and how you go about solving this business model problem?
Yeah, so look, obviously, there is several areas in terms of digital farming. But there are 3 areas which I would probably focus on. One is precision farming. Second is the use of telematics and essentially ensuring that the machine is most productive and there is high uptime. Okay. And third is the automation and autonomy, which can be driven in the farms, okay, to carry out specific field activities. Okay. So, if you look at farming, precision farming itself, every decision that a farmer is taking, starting from the time that he's preparing the soil, to time he's sowing the crop, to the time when he's taking care of the crop health and harvesting and even transporting, any decision that he gets wrong can have a huge impact on what we are talking about, sustainability or even profitability of the farm, etc. Okay. Now, every decision that we take today can be data-driven. We have data collected from the sensors in the farm. We have data being collected from the equipment which is operating in the farm. There is weather data, there is satellite data, there is imaging. All of this data can help take the right decision. And And each of those decisions can matter a lot in terms of our goal. So to me, there is a huge potential to apply digital technology, and what we do is also not just help take those decisions, but we also have capabilities to actually pass on those decisions as prescriptions back to the machines which are carrying out the actual application of the farm. Now, in India, it may not be large machines. It could be drones. It could be any other way. But essentially, if you can create that entire, digital capability, then it has a huge impact in terms of sustainability, yield in the farm, as well as overall, let's say, profits in the.
And you mentioned earlier that, there are inherent challenges to India adopting all of these techniques. You obviously mentioned small farmland. You mentioned the mechanization point. How far along is it, in the current experience today? How has it been adopted, or what is still sort of preventing it from being widely adopted in India? All of the techniques that you just mentioned in digital farming.
Well, I think we are seeing a fair amount of activity in this area today, really more in terms of startups at a small scale. I think as I said earlier as well, the big challenge is how do you get a wider adoption and how do you scale it? And to us, really, the main thing is we are trying to look at, for example, in case of sugarcane farming, how could we actually get sugar mills who are a huge beneficiary in terms of, in terms of actually better farming practices in the footprint of the sugar mill? How could we get them, for example, to kind of really drive the adoption? How could we get them to pay for it? So similarly, I think that the challenge is really trying to find out the right players in each area to drive this adoption of the digital technology. Okay.
Yeah, Ananth, coming back to you, what do you think? Like Deepak mentioned that there's a bunch of, let's say, startups, and there's a landscape of now people trying to solve this problem, right? Whether it's bringing technology to agriculture, whether it's the precision farming technology, companies like CNH. What do you see as Capgemini, or as you're working with the sector overall as the Agritech focus in India today? Like, could you explain what the landscape looks like?
Sure. So, Shiladitya, the way I look at the overall Agritech is a confluence of three blobs. Okay, one is digital or big data. Second is more of engineering. It could be telematics, it could be your IoT sensors, etc. The third is the biology itself. Right. So I don't want to restrict the conversation of technology only to digital. I think it's a confluence of all the three coming together in the Agritech. Okay, so that's the exciting thing that is happening. While a lot of Agritechs are in the digital / big data or in the telematic space, that's where all your drones or computer imaging and collecting soil data and doing analysis and providing feedback to the farmers in terms of what should be their crop selection or crop rotation, decisions that need to be made. So that is one part of the Agritechs that are, really kind of doing well. But when you bring in the biology side of it also, there are quite a few interesting, Agritechs. For example, one of them is doing a genetically sequenced pest control solution, which actually kind of reduces chemical impact on the food itself, right? That is one. And there is another startup that talks about, a clean nitrogen fixing fertilizer. Again, the recency effect, the challenges we see in Sri Lanka, one of the, root causes seems to be that, the fertilizers were banned. Right, that resulted in a huge drop in the productivity of food grains, right? But you don't want that to happen either. So there are these biotech companies which are actually kind of looking at, applying the right kind of, nutrients without really impacting the food itself, right? So, and then the last one is, last example is, there are certain spray-on products which actually helps in protecting the fruit or vegetable when they are actually harvested. So I see this as a more of a confluence of these three circles, if you will, and there are exciting things happening with quite a few startups. And from a Capgemini perspective, what we do is we have something called an Applied Innovation Exchange, AIE, which is nothing but a network of about 15 such setups across the globe. And we work with quite a few startups, and a lot of these startups include Agritech startups as well. The intent is to provide a holistic solution to our customers, okay, like CNHI or any other agri customer, to bring in the full force of all these startups, and we don't want to reinvent the wheel. Okay, so that is the thought process with which we set up this Applied Innovation Exchange. And there is one example. We have a solution called FARM, FARM, and that's nothing but a platform for a few Kenyan farmers, which we actually kind of created to do the big data analytics to provide them with a lot of advisory, right? So that is the play that Capgemini as a system integrator plays, and we thrive along with the startups in the entire ecosystem, Shiladitya.
No, very nice. It's great to hear that there's so much interest in the sector, even from new age companies, and of course with the support of large SIs and large companies like CNH. Deepak, to add to that, how what's your final outlook on where the Agritech sector is going, how you guys are looking at it, your forward-looking view on what we should expect to see going forward?
All right. I think good question, and one which is very dear to my heart. Look, I'm very, very positive in terms of the simple fact is that, the yield is very low in India compared to the more advanced market. So if you just, and then sustainability is a huge challenge. So if you just look at the opportunity is big. There is a problem to be solved, okay? And there are some very, very exciting startups which are there, as Ananth is talking about, people who are actually creating solutions which are more relevant to the India market. Okay, I'm also hopeful that a lot of the areas, like at least from CNH perspective, my hope is as we are setting up, software engineering capabilities here in India to drive precision farming, while that center today will be focused on actually building software for global use. But at the same time, we'll be creating a lot of expertise in these technologies within India. So my hope is, not just us, I'm sure there are other players like us who are also gradually building, capabilities, building expertise to be able to, in these techniques, to be able to then also say, okay, how do I bring these techniques in a relevant way to the Indian market? So I'm quite bullish about it. I think this is probably one of the biggest opportunity areas on tech. I think it's going to be bigger than fintech or other opportunities that today I think are hot.
No, thank you for that, and it's so good to hear that being in the sector you have this optimistic outlook. It's definitely something we all need as a sector. I think it's a fundamental one. It's something we can't ignore, and like we spoke earlier, I think the fact that consumers are getting more conscious, the fact that companies like yourself and Capgemini are enabling the ecosystem, there's a lot more technology being put in there. All of this is going to lead to much more positive impact. And, thank you for sharing your insights here, Deepak, Ananth, to both of you. This was definitely an enlightening conversation, and I look forward to, hearing more about this sector as we go along. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for sharing your views. And that's another wrap on our Capgemini Techipedia series. Thank you, Ananth. Thank you, Deepak.
Thank you.
Welcome, Shane.
The introduction of digital farming techniques will change the way agriculture functions. It will assist farmers in analyzing the market demand and determining the optimal time for sowing and harvesting, which are some of the key problems faced by farmers. What do you think will be some of the biggest changes brought about by digital farming? Come and be a part of this conversation on Instagram at Capgemini India, and I'll see you on the next episode of Capgemini's Techipedia series.
Namaste, this is Cyrus Brocha. I am part of the government cancel culture program to remove rubbish off all the different streams available. So what we have is all the collected rubbish we put together on our show. It's called Cyrus Says. It's on IVM podcast. You have to watch it and listen to it. It's on our app. It's on our website. It's on the YouTube channel. It's on Facebook. There are many different ways. Don't bother me and ask me how. You have to find out. We talk to different personalities. Many of them are known. Some are just people we meet downstairs and invite them up for chai. But the point is, it's fun. and it's very therapeutic. So please join in and listen to Cyrus Says.
There's a quick survey to fill out on ivmpodcast.com/survey. It lets us know a little bit more about who's listening to us. And you know what? We're going to do a few prizes. So, we'll do a random drawing of maybe 10 people and we'll send you all some